Hey, today we are talking about serving our world. One thing that I love about Jesus is that he took basically every opportunity to take the people's perspective on the world and flip it completely upside down. Jesus in Matthew 23 verse 11 says this, "The greatest among you must be a servant. Those who exalt themselves will be humbled, and those who humble themselves will be exalted." It's interesting because Jesus was speaking to a culture of power and authority and pride. And he says, you think you understand the world? Well, let me show you a different way. And he does this. He flips people's worlds upside down. And I love that about Jesus. And what he's saying is that it's so important to be a servant and not someone of pride or someone who is exalting themselves. We see this also in John where Jesus begins washing the disciples' feet as an active demonstration of servant leadership. And I love this. Jesus holds this posture of just servanthood, where every other leader, every other person who calls themselves a king would never do this. And Peter, misunderstanding, bless his heart, misunderstanding says, Lord, you can't wash my feet. And Jesus looks at Peter and says, oh, Peter, you just don't get it, do you? And I love this. Jesus actively demonstrated that it's so important to serve first before you do anything else. And so I think that Jesus is calling us to reflect this in our day-to-day life. He's calling us to serve first before anything else. But what's cool about Jesus is when he asks us to do something, it's not something he would never have done himself. He was always willing to do it himself first. So how do we serve people around us? How do we serve our world? Well, I think one of the best ways to serve our world is to lead them to Christ. See, the best gift that I've ever received is a relationship with Christ. And so the best gift that I can give to anyone is a relationship with Christ. But in order to show someone Jesus, in order to bring them close to Jesus or introduce them to Jesus, I need Jesus to be working in me first. Because it's really hard to give someone a gift that you don't have yourself. See, in Romans 12, Paul says that we need to offer our bodies as a living sacrifice so that he can transform us into a new creation. And in the same way, we need to allow the Holy Spirit to work in our life so that our relationship with Christ just transforms us, refines us, so that we can be a new creation with him, so that when people watch our life and watch how we live our life and posture ourselves, they say, what the heck is that? This person is so different than the rest of the world. I want what they have. I want what they have. Because it's so vastly different from anything else the world is offering. And in that, what they have is peace, love, just great things, fruits of the Spirit, evidence in our life. And so we need to be the type of people who serve first and serve others by sharing our faith. The second thing that's important with this value is to lead generous lives. It says in 1 John 3:16, it says, we know what real love is because Jesus gave up his life for us. So we also ought to give up our lives for brothers and sisters. If someone has enough money to live well and sees a brother or sister in need but shows no compassion, how can God's love be in that person? See, God calls us to live a generous life, one that we give freely. And the reason that I can give freely is because I've been freely given things. Do you know what I mean? I love that I can be generous with people because I've been on the receiving end of generosity. The reason that I feel comfortable giving money or giving my time or those types of things is because people have been so generous with me. I remember I was in a season of need where I was going to try and finish college. And I was $2,000 short of tuition. And I go to church one day, and it was crazy because one of the pastors comes up to me with an envelope and says, hey, Ben, somebody left this envelope for you. And I opened the envelope, It just had my name on it with no card, nothing. Opened the envelope, and inside was $2,000 exactly in cash. Exactly what I needed for tuition. And I was blown away by the generosity of someone. And I still don't know who it was. Like, I don't. But because someone was so generous with me, I just feel so released to be generous with others. To give generously. You know, when we talk about generosity, the first thing on people's minds is always like finances and money. But God doesn't want us to just be generous with our finances. Like, yes, He wants us to be generous with our finances, but He wants so much more than that. See, God gave you talents, abilities, passions, beautiful giftings, and He wants you to be generous with those as well. So how do we serve our world? Well, we share our faith, because that's the best gift that they could ever receive. And secondly, we live generous lives with our time, our money, our talents, our giftings, and we give freely because we have been given great gifts.